Hello, and welcome to this presentation by the IET Cambridge Network. We represent members in the Cambridgeshire area, but we're very pleased to welcome those from across the UK and indeed globally today. My name is Phil Zangast, and I will be your host today. Now, before we get underway with our speakers, I will do some housekeeping. You will be able to answer questions today, but we'll leave them to the end of the event. If you think of something that you'd like to ask, please use the Q&A button, which you'll find at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If you wiggle your cursor, that's the Q&A button, not the chat button, please. We'll be able to answer some of the questions that are remaining. Our speakers have kindly offered to do that offline. And we will be recording the event tonight, and you'll be able to find the recording on our YouTube channel if you search for IET Cambridge. And I'll finally mention our next event, which will be on the 2nd of December on the subject of corrosion monitoring. Now, on to tonight's event, and I'm very pleased to welcome our two speakers. We have Miles Garner and Gemma Schroeder. Miles is the Sales and Marketing Director of Aurrigo, part of the RDM group, who specialize in first and last mile self-driving transport solutions. And Gemma Schroeder, who is a program manager with Cambridge County Council, working on the Smart Cambridge and Connected Cambridge initiatives. And she's partnered with Aurrigo in managing the autonomous bus trials in Cambridge that have been going on during the summer. So without further ado, I will hand over to Gemma.
Hi everybody, thanks very much, Phil. I will try and share my screen to show you through this presentation. There we go, hopefully you can all see that now. So before we even get started, I'm going to ask you a quick question. So Julie, if you could put up question 1 for me. We'll be looking at whether you would be interested at the moment in taking part in an autonomous vehicle trial as part of your public transport journey. So it's something that we'll come back to later at the end, but just to get us started, I thought we'd have a quick question.
Just give it a couple of seconds. We've got a good response rate here.
Thanks, Julie.
Results are up for you.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like we're in the right place then. I'm pleased to see that I haven't got too many people to persuade already. I'll maybe leave that to Miles to deal with, but we'll come back to this at the end and see if anybody's changed their mind. So let's get started. As Phil said, my name is Gemma Schroeder. I'm the Programme Manager for the Smart Cambridge and Connecting Cambridgeshire programmes based in Cambridge. We're actually a work stream of the Greater Cambridge Partnership, which is the organisation set up to deliver the government's city deal in Cambridge, which is worth up to £500 million over a 15-year period. Our remit within that trial is to deliver emerging technology and data solutions that can help support the GCP in their goals, key to which is accelerating sustainable creation of 44,000 new jobs and over 33,000 new homes in our region by 2031. As you can imagine, economic growth in all cities, and particularly in our small and historic city, brings with it quite a few challenges. It's quite a busy slide, but just to pick some of those out. Congestion and house prices are rising really quickly in our area, as in many. And that's stifling growth and leading to several of the outcomes you can see on this slide: poorer air quality and decreased staff retention for some businesses, while people struggle to afford houses in the area. It's generally attributed to a poorer quality of life, which is, of course, something that we're keen to alter the direction of. Alongside our sister programme, Connecting Cambridgeshire, which is looking at digital connectivity and digital inclusion, our programme works on a wide range of projects. But with these challenges in mind, I don't think it's really surprising to see that a lot of the work that we do is focused around transport. We are working on projects in the areas of mobility as a service, micro-mobility, and also ways of encouraging and sustaining behaviour change. but for several years, we've also been focused on the opportunities that autonomy can bring to our region. The Greater Cambridge Partnership have a goal of getting 1 in 4 people out of their cars. And with that in mind, a viable, clean and convenient alternative to the private car is an essential challenge for us to solve. So I joined the programme in 2018 and began working alongside Aurrigo and Miles to deliver our own autonomous vehicle trial here in Cambridge. So our trial was a £3.2 million project funded by Innovate UK and Aurrigo, originally due to run for 2.5 years, but we had to extend that slightly due to the pandemic. While Aurrigo were of course focused on the design and build of the shuttles themselves, it was important for us as a local authority to understand how we would make autonomy a real part of our public transport system. After all, even if you have a private autonomous car, it's still a car on the road, adding to congestion in the region, and that's something that we're trying to reduce. So we needed to understand what changes to our infrastructure schemes might be needed to support delivery of autonomy in the future, how our residents would react to vehicles like this on their roads and as part of their transport system. Of course, the money, would the business case around this kind of product stack up? And critically for us, what safety factors needed to be investigated and understood, as this is obviously a novel and complex technology at this stage. I think Miles will also cover a little bit of this, but just a bit of background. We had originally intended to run this trial on the Cambridge Guided Busway, which is a segregated route out of town. We had looked at that and done some previous work in another round of funding on it. However, when it came to the opportunity to actually run our trial, it was the case that the technology had developed enough for us to be able to change into a different route and run a 3-kilometre circular route from the Park and Ride and across onto the West Cambridge campus on mixed traffic. So COVID meant that we only had 5 weeks in which to run our trial, which was much less than we'd hoped for, but it went well. It was kicked off in good style with the Minister for Future Transport joining us here in Cambridge in May, and we've got some facts and figures on the reception that we got for it. It was well promoted, and you probably saw some information about it online and social media, etc. Being at the forefront of technology and innovation is something that Cambridge is generally renowned for, and so it's been a real opportunity for us to be able to be involved in this trial. I'm going to stop sharing and try and show you a short video of the area, and hopefully that will put this into a little bit more context for you, and then I'll hand over to Miles to tell you about the technology that we deployed on the trial.
The Greater Cambridge Partnership is looking at public transport and sustainable travel across the whole of the region. We're trialling a small fleet of autonomous vehicles.
We'll be running on the West Cambridge site in mixed traffic with cyclists and pedestrians, and safety is paramount for us.
Connected and self-driving vehicle technology is set to play a major role in the exciting transport revolution happening today in the UK.
This project is going to help us get to that objective by picking out some of the things that we can do in the shorter term.
For a local authority, we really need to begin to understand how passengers interact with the vehicles.
This isn't a flight of fantasy. This is an emerging technology with real-world benefits.
Okay, thank you very much, Gemma. I'm just going to open up this presentation so I can share with you. So I'd like to kick off by giving you a really quick overview of Aurrigo. Aurrigo is part of the RDM company in Coventry. We have offices around the world, Adelaide and Houston, Ottawa, and also for Singapore. All of these offices came out of events that we attended, ITSs in those particular countries, which then turned into operations, plus also lots of projects around those countries. We have our own ACS, our autonomous control system, which I'll be touching on in a second. Absolutely key for a company like us, who are the manufacturer of the vehicles, to also own the ACS element of it as well. So our company, RDM, is a tier 1 automotive 28-year-old company. We have customers like Aston Martin, Land Rover Jaguar, Rolls-Royce, offering lots of different types of products, lots of services, and also actually prototyping as well. The typical accreditations you have to have as a tier 1 into OEs to offer product trackside is there, TS plus also ISO, and the range of autonomous vehicles that I'm talking about today are, as you can see there. So the 4 current products are an autonomous pod that can carry up to 4 people, aimed at off-road type of environments, so for sidewalks, campuses, and for shopping malls, offering that last mile transportation. Because we are the manufacturer of the vehicles, we can customize the interior, and if customers are after a cargo type of based interior, we can do that. The autonomous shuttle there on the right hand side was came out of the Cambridge trials, which was talked about, and I'll come on to talking about that in a little bit more detail. Autodolly is a really interesting type of product. So this is an aviation autonomous dolly, which takes cargo and luggage to the aircraft, which came about 2.5 years ago. We were contacted out of the blue randomly from IAG, off a BA, asking us if we could take a conventional type of dolly. I want to talk about the type of dollies. This is your tug and freeze that you see airside as you're looking out of your aircraft window. Quite often the guys there in the cab carrying lots of luggage on a really mechanical sort of type of system. Hasn't changed in, I think, over 60 years. Has lots of issues from a health and safety and other type of impact as well. So Autodolly is all about taking out the driver element, autonomously taking that cargo to and from the aircraft. Taking cargo as opposed to passengers is a lot easier. So the aviation actually sector is really important for us, but I should move on. So the other products you can see there, Auto Patrol, and this is a autonomous pod that can operate remotely, and it's aimed at areas where you need coverage of a CCTV. So that could be airport perimeters, it could be any area where you want to take out the human to operate autonomously, that can then relay information to the base. And it also has a drone which is on the roof, which is a tethered type of drone which comes up, and you can then take lots of footage on a helicopter type of basis. It was already touched on the TCABs, as we call it. So this was operating around the campus, like in West Cambridge, 2.5-year Innovate UK type of project, which allowed us, Aurrigo, to actually build autonomous shuttles. So absolutely key to the business. We really had a blank piece of paper. We were very keen to make a shuttle that was totally different from the competition, and I'm pleased to say that it looks ever so different. Some people liked it, other people weren't absolutely sure about it. It caused lots of interest in the press, and in the media. We had planned to run for up to 24 weeks. COVID hit right in the middle of the project. We carried on actually making the shuttles because it was absolutely key to carry on the project. So it ended up actual on the ground running around Cambridge over like a shorter period of 11 weeks. We had actually planned to operate only over 3 days. We were keen to try to catch up and try to take as many people as we could, till we then actually changed that to over 4 days and also operated in the evenings on a Thursday. We carried over 300 passengers. We clocked up over like 1,000 kilometers, and we also went out with a survey asking people as to how they felt about it. And I'm pleased to say it was a really, it was a higher type of rate, ever so similar to the poll that we were talking about there earlier on. Yeah, and actually general, people are obviously keen on this tech and are quite happy to ride it. I won't cover off the areas there at the bottom because it was already covered off there. Couple of images of our operation. So we were operating out of like a farm area on the edge of the campus, which was absolutely great because it actually meant that we had an office, which you can see there in the image, and also an area to keep the shuttles really safe and able to charge them as well. Couple of pictures of the operational type side. So they're on the left hand side. That was operating out of the park and ride, off Madeley, and you can see all of the shuttles there. Right, so let's sort of talk about the tech. So autonomous vehicles, they tend to operate really ever so similarly on the type of technology. So we use LiDARs, we use cameras, inertial, so actually measurements, an encoder on the wheel to work out exactly the revolution, and also we take a measurement off a lot of steering as well to work out the angle, and then of course over GPS as well. So LiDARs, so LiDAR is a form of a laser, which quickly actually sends out a laser light, and then it returns and then actually measures that type of distance from the object that it hits. And then out of that, you can then actually build a map. So we operate, so the LiDAR operates as a 360 degrees on a really wide angle, and on this particular LiDAR, it can carry out up to 200 meters as a range. Other LiDARs can operate on a longer distance because we were operating around the campus on relatively low type of speed. The type of LiDAR actually required didn't actually need to cover any other distance in that. Accuracy up to a couple of centimeters. So the type of LiDARs we were running on this particular project were two type of LiDARs, like a multi-beam and also like planar. The one on the right hand side operates as a close type of safety laser, ever so low down, and then the laser on the left hand side operates over navigation. And you can see here images of how the LiDARs read the information. So the colors you can see they're operating, the reds, the ambers are the various LiDARs looking around, taking information, coming actually back. You can see the trees. This particular area is along the campus, along the main road. So camera Tech is also absolutely key to work out objects. So all the time it is actually looking for any type of object, any type of markings which are on the street. So and it then takes all of that information and records it. And we have a number of the cameras operating around. So we have up to 3 on the front and 8 which are also actually checking out as a 360-degree round. So cameras are good, and they're relatively cheap in cost as opposed to LiDARs. But cameras have their actual limitations currently, and that is because they need lots of actually processing actually power. They can actually shake around, and if they do actually move, well then it isn't as accurate. So the challenge is how we actually mount that on the vehicle, so in other words, we don't get lots of actually vibrations. They require calibrating almost every other day, and also over low light they're not as accurate as well. So cameras are a part of the suite that actually make up the whole of the sensor type of package. So we are all the time actually looking for any type of object. So we have to train our ACS and tell it for objects, as in a car, as in a person, also like a cyclist. And there's lots of cyclists in Cambridge. So it then takes all of this information and then it works out exactly as to where it is. And I'm hoping this will run. You can then actually see it. So this is an example operating on the main hub of the campus road, and you can see there all the colors picking up objects, telling the vehicle what are the objects. It's also actually looking at the curbs, looking at the yellow lines as well. So it's just taking all of this information to work out exactly as to where it's operating. Also, we take a few type of measurements at a inertial, and that can be the roll and also the pitch and the yaw of the vehicle as it actually moves. The type of vehicle that this is, it's really ever so lightweight. So to actually build it on a chassis, on the outer body is a composite called Omnia. So it's like a honeycomb, ever so lightweight, which is good because it's ever so light. So obviously on a electric vehicle, it's all about actually lightness. On the other side of the coin, the type of challenges is you can actually have this sort of roll, and also there are actually pitch as well. So that adds kind of extra type of challenges. So we have to measure all of these elements. We also have encoders on the wheels, and this actually measures how the wheels, the performance, how often, the type of surface of the road, and also the cornering aspect as well. And again, it's another piece of tech kind of actually mashed in to the rest of the tech to work out exactly as to where the vehicle is. And we're using coders as well. So the encoders is really similar to almost like an ABS encoder over the wheel. So we can take information, we can calibrate that, and it can also actually tell us information actually like tire actually pressure as well. We also take a measurement off the steering, and we use a sensor to work out exactly where the steering wheel is. On this particular vehicle, you can operate it as a conventional electric vehicle as well, and that is a real added type of bonus if we're talking to customers who are interested in purchasing these. If you're able to just run the vehicle as a conventional electric vehicle, it really opens up other opportunities. So we take that off the steering wheel, and again, you actually mash that in to all of the sensor suite to work out where we are. And you can see here again, so we have the camera footage up the top, and then also the LiDAR information at the bottom. And then we have the map. So what we do is we take all this information and then we have to build a map. And there's a couple of ways which we can do that. You can literally take a piece of kit and you can actually put it on your back and you can walk around and you can actually take that information, or you can have it on a pod, as you can see there in the middle, on the top hand side there. Or you can operate it on the shuttle itself, or even use a car. So that particular car, it was a project that we were operating over in the States, and we just took a normal Honda vehicle and added all the tech on top of it, and then we actually build a map. And this is part of the map, which is again operating around the Cambridge, the main campus area. So you can see there lots of detail, everything from trees, the roads, and also like the buildings. And then you take all that information, lots of information, and then you actually build a map. We also have a product called Auto Connect, and this is almost like the back end elements of it. So in other words, if you think of an Uber app, whereas you can open up that app and you can then actually see the vehicles in operation, you can then call a vehicle to where you are. You can then either actually pay for it. On the Cambridge trials, it was totally free of charge. This is more for a commercial operation. And to actually demonstrates we do have the whole connectivity elements of it. So I'm going to now come out of here and I'm going to just play you just a short video. Hopefully if it works. Are you able to see that? I just need to check.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, excellent, great. Let me just open that up and I'll just...
So this is the Aurrigo autonomous vehicle, electric vehicle that's been converted to run so it can drive itself. So we have some laser scanners. So with those scanners, we can see all around the vehicle and out to 200 meters in front of the vehicle. So there are multiple cameras. We can pick up objects that are in the scene, and we can also pick up the road markings. This is a fully accessible vehicle, so we have high visual contrast touch points. We have high contrast grab handles to help you get in. And then underneath this step is a deployable ramp. It's a regular vehicle interior. There's lighting and there's seat belts for every seating position. We have CCTV cameras here, and there's also air conditioning. We have seating here for 10 people. Due to the COVID limitations, we're currently only operating with 3, so we can have the maximum social distancing.
Okay, I'll cut it off there because I think we've covered off enough from there, and I'm just going to come out and then I shall hand you over to Gemma. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Miles. It's nice to see the vehicles on the road again and actually some sunshine. I remember that now. Right, if I can share this for you again, hopefully you can see that. Julie, do shout if it's not possible to see. I won't spend ages on this slide. It's just a culmination of what some of Miles talked about. So our trials were very successful. There's some data there around the amount of data we collected, the passengers we carried, journeys we carried out, the distance we covered. And of course, that all important 97.4% of people who said they would ride an autonomous shuttle again. There's also the detail there of the media coverage that we gained throughout the trials. So it was important for us to understand what as a city we would get out of doing things like this, and this will lead on to one of my questions later. We looked at all the items that are listed here on this slide, but I think perhaps the most important to pull out is the safety casework that we carried out. So it was really important for us to understand how we would be impacted and what we needed to prepare as a city for trials like this. It gave us the opportunity to educate our council officers who obviously haven't dealt with this before on the current legislation that's available and frameworks around autonomous vehicle trial and operation. We looked at some of the genuine risks versus some of those not quite so genuine risks that have been talked about around autonomous vehicles. And crucially for us, it also raised challenges that are related to autonomy and autonomous vehicles, but also those that are perceived as being related to autonomy, but actually are more widely relevant, such as the safety concerns around batteries for electric vehicles, where you have to charge them, and also things like silent running of electric vehicles, which of course are things that we have to take into consideration more widely than just this trial. But overall, a really helpful exercise for us and a great opportunity. Another quick question for you, which we'll keep in mind. So Julie, if you could put up number 2, you're ahead of me. Thank you very much. I'll give you a couple of seconds to answer about this one. I'll answer it myself as well. But we'll keep this in mind while we talk through the results from our passenger surveys and also the outcome of our business casework. And then I'll share with you the challenges that we think existed and that we found during this project.
Give it a couple more seconds.
Yep.
There you go.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so quite a spread across a wide range of challenges. That's a good answer. Thank you. We'll move on to talking about our survey results and passenger feedback. Again, I'll try and rattle through this quite quickly as Miles has covered off some of it, but we can come back to it in the questions if needed. So overall, people were very positive about our trial. We tried to ask our questions quite specifically so that we'd be clear on the outcomes that we got. So we asked people how confident they felt about not having a driver in the vehicle in the future, and 92% of people said that they felt they were confident or very confident that they would be able to adjust to that in the future. The key number there on the using an AV again, but also 97% of people said that they felt safe on board the vehicle at all times. This one gives us a little bit more to think about. So we asked people how positive they felt about the technology and its capabilities in the area that we deployed it, and whether they felt that it was a safe alternative. 79% of people said that they felt it was. We then asked them the same question, but about a more congested and heavily trafficked area, and it dropped down to 50%. So I think this tells us a little bit about the fact that people acknowledge that both from a technical point of view, and as a passenger, you experience some changes in the technology, and there are more challenges that we need to overcome for people to feel safe in those busier areas. There were also a couple of more open questions and challenges that we might need to think about. So, for example, 33% of people said that they would feel less confident travelling in a vehicle with no driver late at night. It's also worth noting that a number of people commented that, in fact, they prefer not to travel late at night, full stop. So there's some digging to do under there to understand the true depth of that number. But also critically for cities, it's about how non-passengers, so other road users, feel about autonomy on our streets. Are they comfortable with it? Do they feel that they can work around this kind of vehicle? And what's the operational safety for it? So moving on to the financial, which a few of you did say was quite a key challenge for us to overcome. Apologies, this slide is quite complex. I can share them afterwards because it's a bit small, but I'll try and give a brief overview. Essentially, what we're trying to show here is that the different types of cost involved in running a service. So on the far left, you've got the segregated route for an AV shuttle, then the unsegregated route, but like our trial, then a 12-seater diesel fleet, so manually driven, and the same for a manually driven electric fleet on the far right. So as you can see from these, we compared those cases together. And what it highlights is that the patronage, when that's scaled up, the relative cost of the AV comes down considerably when compared to diesel and electric. So in the top part, we're talking about 400 passengers per hour on a 1.5 minute service. And on the bottom one, we're talking about 3,000 passengers per hour on a 1.5 minute service. So it's a really convenient one. And it highlights the fact that as you scale that up and you remove the cost of the driver, it does make a huge difference, and the business case for autonomy really comes into its own. Also, there's a note at the bottom there to say that this assumes that we are able to remove the safety operator from the vehicle. And we'll come on to that in a moment. So to balance this out, we also spoke to our passengers about how long they'd be prepared to wait at a stop for a shuttle. And you'll see that a significant majority here said that they would be prepared to wait 5 to 10 minutes. And 49% of them also said that they would be prepared to pay up to £2 for an unlimited daily ticket on the route that we put forward. If that were the case, and comparing it to the business case that we've put in here, it shows that we would be able to both meet their price and frequency expectations and actually exceed them quite significantly. So we will be offering on the business case on the left a 1.5 minute service, so more efficient than the Tube, the London Underground, etc., almost on demand, and people would be prepared to wait up to 5 to 10 minutes. So we'll be able to deliver more than what they had expected, which is obviously a really positive thing for us. But just to point out again, this does look at removing the safety driver from the vehicle. So moving on to some of the challenges that we experienced while we were doing our tests. There are a few, of course. I think that's to be expected, but I've highlighted a couple of them here. Complex technologies having to keep pace with constant changes. So there's a lot going on in the real world. It's very difficult to plan for all of those things, and I'm sure Miles and the team will attest to the fact that we had a few things unexpected in Cambridge. Delivery drivers that park wherever they like, e-scooters using the wrong kind of lanes, etc. So there are lots of things that this technology, although it's advanced, is going to have to catch up with and keep pace with. The other thing that we found in relation to the technology is that because this is so novel, a lot of the problems that we experienced, this was the first time we've experienced them. We had an issue with a very unusual camber on the road at one of the junctions, which caused some problems for the LiDAR and cameras. So it requires you to put in quite a lot of effort to solve those problems because it's the first time they've come up. Again, this is the critical one that we've talked about a couple of times. To support the business case, as you've seen, it's important that we look at how we remove the safety operator from a vehicle. And that doesn't mean take them away completely. It means potentially taking them out of that particular vehicle and then allowing somebody to remotely manage those vehicles from a distance, for example. This is something that Aurrigo are working on with government at the moment. So hopefully this is a step along the journey, and also ties into the other challenge that a number of you wrote around legislation. So again, deployments in this area is about a lot more than just the technology. There's a whole ecosystem that needs to be put in place, vehicle and passenger safety, of course, but charging infrastructure, ticketing, maintenance, etc. And on quite a short trial as we ended up with, there's a lot that needs to be done in a short amount of time, and work that we could do in the future to try and build that in as a better solution. Stakeholder engagement and expectation, bit of a double-edged sword on this one, two sides to the coin. You need to manage the expectation of the enthusiastic people who are really keen and feel that we can press the button and tomorrow the whole transport system can be made autonomous. And then we've got the other extreme of engaging those people that are skeptical or fearful of this technology. And that's again something that we looked at in our survey. We're very conscious of the fact that we asked our passengers to join us if they wanted to. So they'd already made a decision that they felt confident enough to get onto that vehicle and were interested enough to try it. So for future work, it will be interesting for us to try and understand how you reach that group that are not so confident about this sort of technology. Integration into the wider system, again, lots to be talked about here, but there's not a silver bullet solution for congestion and poor air quality in our cities. It's part of a wider solution, and we have to work out where autonomous vehicles will fit into that. And then finally, finding a home, if you like, for managing these technologies within local authorities is a bit of a challenge. We overcame that for this trial by putting together a multidiscipline risk management group that we had people from our busways team, our road safety audit team, traffic officers, and our health and safety executive as well. But it takes a little bit of work, and we're not quite there yet, but we are going in the right direction. Okay, Julie, if you could put poll 3 up for me, please. Following on from that last comment, I'm interested to know whether you feel that local authorities should actually be the ones that are supporting trials in this area. Should we be doing this, or should we in fact be leaving it to somebody else?
I think you got your answer right there.
Excellent. Thank goodness for that. Thank you, everybody. Okay, in that case, that means that I can carry on to the next slide that I prepared, which is about our next steps and ambitions. So we're keen to build on the inertia that we gained from this trial. So you saw in that infographic a huge amount of media interest, and that's channeled through into our local members and people in our local area. We're really keen to build on that. So we're working with industrial partners, the government and other local authority partners to ensure that all the schemes that we're currently designing are built with the future of autonomy in mind. We know it's not going to be here tomorrow, but we want to make sure that we're ready when it does come down the line. We're also looking at investigating options for larger trials in our area in the future. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of work to be done around this. So the opportunity to run a much longer, larger trial that potentially reaches more people and allows people to really understand how this will work in their public transport system is really important to us. The safety challenges, as always, have to be answered, and we are keen to understand how we can do that, looking at the information that we got back, both from our safety case, but also from our passenger feedback. And finally, there's nothing that gets away from the fact that financially you have to be able to support trials and work like this to ensure that we can bring autonomy into Cambridge and keep it here. So we're working alongside other partners and employers in the area like the University of Cambridge and AstraZeneca to accelerate the arrival of this technology into Cambridge for good. So one last one, if you can rerun question 1, Julie.
This is just to see whether Gemma has changed any hearts and minds during the Miles.
No pressure. I hope if they've changed in a positive direction. I think that's a 1% shift.
No, yes, in the first one was at 73%, it's now at 88. No was at 7 and is now at 6. And in the future was at 20% and is now at 7. So yes, you have changed lots of minds here.
Excellent, thank you. Then my work is done. Thank you very much, everyone. if you've got any questions, obviously I've seen there's a few going into the Q&A, and I will hand back over to Phil and David to take us through those. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Julie.
Okay, thanks very much, Gemma and Miles. There's quite a few questions to answer. We've got 15 minutes or so before we reach the hour, so I'll hand over to David, who will take us through the Q&A.
Okay, I hope everybody can see me at the moment. Just trying to go across here. View, speaker, view, host view. Can everybody see me or not?
Yeah, I can see you.
We can.
Good, right. Well, thank you, Gemma, and thank you, Miles. We have quite a few questions, as you've already noticed. What I'm going to try and do is start off by going through the list in sort of numerical order. The first one is, why did the Cambridge buses look so weird? With all the sharp edges, they look like possibly be a danger to pedestrians if there were accidents at any speed. I don't know who wants to answer that particular one.
Yeah, I'll be happy to answer that. So yes, weird, odd, lots of names were called at the shuttles, and that was the whole idea. Our competition tends to make almost like a box on wheels, and we were very keen to make it look totally different, very kind of futuristic, really. So to answer your question on the on the sharp lines on the front, yeah, absolutely. So to this, it was a project. It was an R&D type of project, and we took away lots of knowledge really on the back of that, and that is actually one thing that we did actually take away, and we have now actually changed that on the current ones which we're actually building over the road. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, we did learn from this, and yeah, we have actually taken that on board.
All right, thank you very much, Miles. There's several people asked a similar question, is as to what speed were the buses running at, and really what are they capable of achieving?
Yeah, so in autonomous mode, you tend to find everyone operates at a really similar type of speed, which is really safe. So that tends to be about 10 mph. So the shuttles can operate up to 30 in a manual mode, and if it was ever so safe, it could operate at that type of speed also in autonomous mode as well. On average, it was around about 10 miles per hour.
Okay. How often has the safety driver had to intervene?
Tended to vary. It really did. We tended to get a lot of interest, you know, because it looks ever so different. We had lots of cars that were sort of, well, to be honest, cutting us up at times to try to test the technology. Lots of there's like cyclists, and I can't be in actually Cambridge, so I can't tell you how many times over the whole of the period, but yeah, I mean there were occasions, you know, safety operator had to take over control. Yeah.
Okay. There's quite a few people who've shown a positive interest, and particularly asking how can they be a participant in your trials. And one person said they've tried to contact you and wasn't sure how they'd get through and sort of put their names down for a drive, or not a drive, but a ride in the bus.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to answer that one, Gemma.
I was going to say, this trial that we've been talking about particularly actually finished in June, so we're not able to offer that as an opportunity at the moment, but I know that Aurrigo are working with some other local authorities, I think up in Birmingham, Miles, where it might be possible for people to book onto a ride. I'll leave it to you to explain how that happens.
Yeah, so after Cambridge, we were approached out of another council, and that was Solihull Council, who ended up then purchasing a vehicle and taking it to the NEC, and it was operating around the NEC, taking people out of the resorts world in to the main entrance at the NEC. That ended a couple of weeks ago, and they are currently talking to 2 other locations, which I can't tell you at the moment because it's not actually finalized, but if anyone is interested in taking a ride, if they contact me afterwards, I'll be really happy and that's to hook them up.
Okay, you might get a lot of people sending in emails to you. We'll have to get them across to you.
Okay.
There's a sort of a question here, 300 passengers in 44 days. I think the sort of concern is that really a good enough test?
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, sorry, Gemma, go on, you go.
Oh, no, I was just going to say we had quite a small period of time that we were able to test these vehicles in. So, of course, it was 300 people in, well, 300 people more than we had at one point thought we would be able to get. So I totally agree. It's not the huge numbers that we had hoped for, but given the time period and the time in which we were able to run, so during the working week, Monday to Thursday, I think it was a representative example, and of course gave us quite a bit of feedback in the passenger surveys and allowed the team to be running that over 1,000 kilometres in the vehicles.
Okay. There's a question about the weather and what was the worst weather experience during the trial and how did the bus perform and what was the impact of the poor weather?
I have to say most of it was quite sunny, but we did have quite a bit of rain, didn't we, on a couple of evenings. Fortunately, not while I was there, but while Miles was there with the team.
No, we did. So there was a couple of times when we had heavy rain. It performed ever so well. I mean, like any type of LiDAR, you know, the challenges are when you have ever so heavy rain, heavy snow, also fog as well. I mean, it can impede, you know, as to how the type of tech is evolving so quickly. The sort of quality, really, of the LiDARs are getting actually better and better and better. So that's all kind of actually part of the project.
Okay, now, perhaps I'm just poking a question as an add-on to that. How does this technology actually take account of what's put in cars these days? I mean, obviously, cars is an enormous amount of investment by Mr. Tesla's team and et cetera, et cetera. So I was wondering if you'd sort of taken any inspiration from what's going on in cars.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So the tech that we use on the shuttle and on everything is really similar to tech in cars. The whole reason why we took a decision 8 years ago to concentrate on the first and the last mile was because operating on a road is really tough. In a car, if you are operating 80 miles an hour, you know, up and down the M1, it's a totally different type of proposition. And that's why over the past couple of years, you have actually seen quite a lot of the OEMs really actually back off from their prediction of a mass market autonomous vehicle. I mean, I was at a conference, I always remember it, around about 8 years ago, and there was a president, and that for Ford was talking about 2021. It was the year that you would you could walk in to a dealership, you know, and actually purchase an autonomous vehicle. And you know, as we know, that isn't the case. There's a hell of a lot more testing, you know, that has to go on before it's like a mass market sort of on the road. You'd have to take nearly every car off the road tonight, and tomorrow everything would have to be connected and all autonomous to be ever so seamless. So yeah.
How does it detect people waiting to cross at a zebra crossing?
So it uses the sensors, and if it then actually works out a person is there, if it comes at a certain type of distance, it will come to a halt. Yeah, and it will actually stop.
And it's another comment here about the roads. The roads in the videos all seem very well maintained, and I know they're the West Cambridge side. How does it cope with poor roads, having lots of repairs, etc., on them that could appear to the cameras to be road markings or sort of holes in the roadway?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the reason why we have quite a lot of tech there to work out and over navigation is that you can't only just rely on the camera technology to work out that. So it will use all other sensors in the suite to work out, and so then to make a decision. Yeah, but it's a good question, and absolutely for sure. Conditions on roads will actually become really important. Yeah.
Question about what's coming from China. What percentage of the electronics comes from China, or is it all made in the UK?
I would love to say it is 100% out of the UK. I would be a liar if I said that. So I can't tell you the actual percentage out of the whole of the build of the vehicle. Obviously, it was a innovate type of funded type project. So as a company, we were keen to make it as really UK actually based. And then on the other side of the coin, there was a budget that we had to work with. So there were occasions as we had to take actually China products. Yeah.
Okay. Concern about safety. If the LiDAR emitter has the need to warn people do not stare, what provision has been made to protect children or vulnerable people, perhaps in a wheelchair, who may be closer to the ground and nearer to the technology in the beam?
Yeah, so LiDAR is like any type of laser. You know, you can't be looking sort of actually right on it. So on that image that you saw on there, yeah, so if you do actually stare into it, there is an issue there. Yeah, I don't know really. I mean, that's a
the vehicle itself is
work in progress.
Yeah,
I think the vehicle itself also has covers over certain parts of the LiDAR as well, so it's not as exposed as it's actually shown in that photograph that Miles was sharing. And you can see them on this vehicle. It's not such a likely scenario as it looked from the original photograph of the device itself.
Yeah.
Okay. As someone who's worked on a few autonomous vehicles, I wonder if the poll at the start did not ask the wrong question. Being on the vehicle is a fairly safe position compared to being near it.
Yep, that's true. And a little bit of what we tried to cover off in the survey there by talking about people who were non-passengers and how other road users felt about the vehicle. Admittedly, we were asking them once they'd got off the vehicle, but we were trying to understand that very point. So yeah, it's certainly a relevant question. Okay.
And what are your top 3 failure modes, and what do you do if the failure occurs?
I'm not absolutely sure I understand the question. So
I think what it's about is what's the most likely cause? I mean, if you work on a bit of electronics, usually the power supply blows up or something or other. What actually sort of happens on the bus? What's the most likely thing to go wrong, do you think?
okay, so any type of failure mode, and on the vehicle it will actually slow down or even actually stop. So so it's always actually safety first.
Okay, so in other words, there's somebody's put in another one. If you have you done what's known as an FMEA, a failure mode equipment analysis, for example?
Yes, we did. Yeah, our technical team can tell you all about that, but yes, I do. Yes, I do actually know that we had to do that as actually part of the of our insurance, because trying to get insurance on an autonomous vehicle isn't the easiest thing to do. You know, you don't actually go on to compare and just actually tap it in. So it's a very, yeah.
Okay. Perhaps this is for Gemma. How are you going about sharing your experiences with other cities?
Yeah, we're doing that a number of ways. Events like this, absolutely. But also we work quite closely with a number of smart city networks that look at cities mostly across the UK. But we also have partners, other networking groups like Cambridge Wireless, for example, whose members we talk to on a regular basis. There's also a fair bit of information up on our website if people are interested to see that. And
this is the GCP website, is it?
There is a page on the Greater Cambridge Partnership website, and there's also one at the connectingcambridgeshire.co.uk website.
Okay, great. So I'm just trying to get a punt in for your website.
Yeah, no problem.
Does the autonomous logic adapt to locals' behaviour? E.g., does it learn the typical behaviour of other road users at certain intersections?
Currently not. No. Okay. It's not learning. No.
Okay. How do you manage rider challenges, such as inability to book, need to ask questions from customer service, etc.? This is probably talking about how you'd use the bus in reality in the longer term, whether it would be a booking services, or is this just turn up and sort of get on board, etc.?
Yeah, that's something that we've considered from a couple of options. So we've done a study using some previous government funding looking at this and the potential to have some sort of virtual concierge to help with problems. But as Miles showed in this particular instance, we had hoped to be deploying an app so that you're able to book tickets, etc., via that.
Okay. The technology is great fun, and I can understand the arguments of air quality, congestion, etc. But is this confusing the advantages of electric vehicles with autonomy? Sorry, I missed on the slide, but did you consider manually driven EVs, hydrogen vehicles in your environmental case?
We did look at those in our business case. So looking at whether we were using a driver in a vehicle, not in hydrogen, but in an electric vehicle. And there is obviously some overlap between an electric vehicle and an autonomous electric vehicle like this. Our focus as a local authority has been on making sure that we're using the technologies available to try and draw private cars off the road, be that normal cars, electric or autonomous vehicles in the future.
Okay. We're coming to the end of the questions because there's a lot of repeats of other questions. But I'll ask few things here. Have you studied the Docklands Light Railway, which has been running for many years, which are driverless, but of course run on fixed routes? Is there a comparison across to what you're doing?
Well, from an autonomy social point of view, it is a type of autonomous transport, but that is actually using infrastructure, whereas it's sort of key for us to have this as a commercial social proposition. We don't need any infrastructure in place that costs money and is very, very hard, and that to change. So yes, it's a different type of autonomy, but yeah. Okay.
Something from a local sort of inhabitant of Cambridge. There's a proposal for a shuttle bus between Waterbeach, the new Waterbeach Newtown, and the station. Might this be used for that, or are we too far off in terms of technology?
I think we're a little way away. There have been discussions that we've had actually with the developers across at Waterbeach around potential segregated routes. So it's definitely not impossible and something that we have been talking about. I don't think there's a plan for that just right now.
Okay. One interesting one is, can the vehicle reverse, or does it have to follow a one-way circular route?
It can reverse. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
You can say you can reverse. Good.
Yep.
And really about, because coming to the end, I know time's getting on. Does GCP have any plans for any follow-up trials?
Yeah, we are, as I said in the slide deck, we're really keen to build on the work that we've done with Aurrigo on this trial. So we are looking at the potential for other funded trials coming along and options on where we might be able to run those in the future.
Okay, great. Well, Phil, I think I've got quite a few odds and sods questions left, but I think time's getting on, and I know that Miles and Gemma have to get off, so perhaps I can hand back to you.
Indeed. Thank you, David. And Miles, Gemma, thank you very much for taking us through that look behind the scenes of what went on over the summer. I must admit, I heard, I was very excited by the trials when I heard them announced in June, but I hadn't heard anything about what happened. So it was interesting to see that you learned, I think, so much about the technology, the operational aspects, and perhaps also the passenger perceptions that you're going to have to deal with. And it'll be fascinating to see how you take that forward, or how that goes forward in that domain. So again, thank you very much for making the time to talk to us this afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. So that brings us to the end of this afternoon's presentation. Thanks, everyone, for attending. I hope you all found it interesting. Please look out for our future events. You can find those if you look on the IET Cambridge website. And as I said at the beginning, we will post the video of the event on YouTube in a few days' time. So we will bring things to a close there, and I will say thanks again to everyone. And you can all disconnect now. Thank you.